Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and today we are going to be checking out California games for the NES.
Yes, this comes to us as a Patreon request review. So, for $5 a month, our buddy Leo said, "Hey guys, I hate you." Thank you so much for the support, bud. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Jim, they really love giving us the great ones, don't they?
Well, Brian, any game that's super popular in Europe is bound to be great. Let's get into it. Originally released in 1987, this was developed by Epix and, well, let's put it this way. It came out on a ton of different consoles and it came out on a ton of different platforms with a lot of different publishers. So I'm not even going to try to sort my way through this mess. But if you want to talk platforms, oh boy, did this come out on everything. Came out on the Apple II, the Amiga, the Amstrad CPC, the Apple II GS, the Atari 2600, the Atari Lynx, the Atari ST, the Commodore 64, DOS, the Master System, the MSX, the NES, the Sega Genesis, and the ZX Spectrum.
Who did they suck off to release it on so many systems?
Brian, would it kill you to know that it was insanely popular and sold extremely well? And it was also the pack-in game for the Atari Lynx because it was so popular?
There's no way it sold well in the US. That had to be goddamn Europeans.
Many mistakes were made.
That's why we left.
Damn it. But yeah, it continues the line of game series from Epix from summer and winter, so it's a collection of mini games. Let's just get into it.
The graphics. Well, considering this game came out in 1987, let's first look at some other classics that came out this year. You had Punch-Out, Zelda 2, Mega Man, Contra, shit, even Top Gun. Those are all pretty good samples of what the NES could do. Now let's take a look at California games. And while I'll give this game credit, there actually is some decent detail put into the sprites because they're fairly large and kind of detailed. But that's where any praise is going to end. Everything else is just so generic. The backgrounds, for the most part, are all static, and even in some of these levels where you have scrolling, you get a lot of the repetitive, just same scenery over and over, and it just gets really boring. Granted, this is not a game you're going to take too much time to look at, but as we review games, we try to notice all the little details, and it's serviceable, but it definitely won't knock your socks off. So at the end of the day, we could only give this one 5s. When it comes to beer, I'm going to add 2 because they could have put a little bit more effort.
The sound. Okay, I gotta be honest with you guys, there's not a lot here. The sound effects are extremely minimal, and the music in the game itself is just like these short loops that are like barely 30 seconds long, though you do get different music for each event, so that's kind of good at least. And the intro music is Louie Louie, so that's extremely random.
It's like Animal House, Jim.
So I think we're gonna be a little generous here, but here's how I came to this conclusion. Bri gave it a 5 and I gave it a 6. And the reason I gave it a little bit more is because I was a dummy, and when I was doing the video capture for this, I didn't realize I could just type in one name and hit go. So I replayed every event 8 freaking times, because that's how many characters you can be, so I heard these songs a lot. And I didn't get sick of them. So as short little stupid loops, it does the job fairly well. So completely average, but it's not unenjoyable. So when it comes to beer, I'll give it 1 beer for good old Louie Louie.
And here's a fun fact for those of you who are fans of the page. Jim has terrible taste in these things. So that's why he gives extra points for terrible things.
I gave the music in this a 6, so you might be right.
The control. It's probably the worst part of this entire game. And let me be very clear, there are plenty of old NES games that you may hear people say, you should really look at the manual before you play. This is an absolute must, as in you will not know what to do at all if you don't look at the manual. Jim warned me before I played it, because he played it first. I was like, well, how hard could it really be? I mean, it's just sporting events. And sure enough, 20 minutes in, I couldn't do any of the events, and I was like, what the hell? Had to look it up. So going through the events in Half Pipe, you would think it's simple enough to just be going up and down the ramp and do some moves. But no, you have to do them at very precise moments with a very precise input. And there is lag, and you're going to hear me say this over and over. It really feels like a coin toss that it accepts your input at the right time, and it just never feels satisfying. When you pull something off, you never feel like you actually did it. You kind of feel like, oh, okay, this happened. Roller skating and BMX are kind of the same because you're essentially just moving the character up and down and you have the ability to jump. It's really stiff, but I will say I guess it's better because you're only moving really in two directions.
And you might be like me and hit that sweet spot and be able to miss some of the obstacles.
Yeah.
Because your depth of vision's a little crap.
Oh yeah, and hit detection in this game is complete dog shit. But then there's surfing, which you would think is going to be like BMX and roller skating, but this one requires you to not only come in at a very specific angle, otherwise you're going to wipe out time and time again, but if you want to try any moves, good goddamn luck, because once again, you got to be precise, you got to come back the same exact way you went up, and otherwise you just stay straight on the wave, and it's just very meh. The only two events I will say were kind of responsive had to be Footbag and Flying Disc. Now, Footbag is really just hacky sack, and you control the character by moving them left and right, and one of the buttons will actually activate the kick. You can turn him around and do a back kick, or you can hit it off the side. Now, it seems like the front kick and back kick, they weren't too bad. There's definitely a delay, but you can time it kind of well. The side kick and the turning around are awfully slow, and you really need to time it in advance. The only interesting thing about this is that you can also jump up and hit it with your head, so while it is definitely laggy, you can compensate for it and actually cheese some really easy points in this one.
And you can hit the bird.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, screw.
And then there's Flying Disc. I'm just going to say it outright. Fuck that game. Jim got it down. I still don't know exactly what I was doing wrong. You would think kind of like golf, how you use the power meter, but it's very deceptive. You have to hit it. You're not allowed to have it kind of bounce back and forth. You got to get it right on the very first go. You release it, and then the person catching it, you control. But Jim and I tried a million times. It doesn't seem to be as exact as you would think. Like sometimes it would be perfectly in their chest. They'd catch it. Other times, they didn't. Or it'd go right over their head. You can die for it. We never got it to work. So the control was just all over the place. Every single event has that ridiculous lag. And it's just too confusing for its own good for simple-ass games like this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a port of a microcomputer game. So basically, it's built around one controller button for every single freaking platform.
Yeah. So when it comes to scores, I gave it a 3, Jim gave it a 4. When it comes to beers, I'm adding 6 beers for all 6 events because I didn't have fun controlling any of them. They all sucked.
I think that might be a record.
I think we might hit one this time.
Alright, the gameplay I can keep kind of quick because for the most part, everything just revolves around controlling these events. Because all you have in this game is playing through the events. Now, you can change it up to being between 1 to 8 players, and they let you pick different teams, like sports license things you can be, and I'll tell you, I didn't see a difference on any of them. I don't think it makes a difference at all. Maybe one's better at an event than another. I don't know. Yeah, so you play the events, and it's the kind of multiplayer where you just pass a controller around. So you don't need a force score or anything like that. You're just playing with the one friggin' controller. And yeah, besides trying to set high scores for yourself, and there are leaderboards for each game. So you can try to hit the high scores, and that's really it. There's nothing to this. It's literally just the events. So when it comes to scores, Brian gave it a 3, and I gave it a 4. What more is there to say? It's just 6 mini events. And when it comes to beer, I'm going to add... You know what? Let's just go crazy on this one. I'm going to add 4 beers for the 4 bad games and the 2 decent games.
The Originality. I'll be honest, there is not a lot here. Epic's already had a tradition of releasing unconventional sports games with summer games and winter games, and those were at least events that were a little more fun. How much fun can you have playing hacky sack and flying disc, as they call it? It didn't make sense as a brand. Sure, you may not see these sports in other games, but that still didn't warrant many points from us. And as Jim mentioned, all the mechanics of just playing with 8 people but passing the controller around, we've seen it all before, so we both gave it 2s. When it comes to score, I'm going to give it 3 beers because I just want to drown this game in alcohol and never think of it again.
Alright, when it comes to replayability, it's everything we said here. So, if you play through the games once and you like them, you might go back. If you don't like them, you'll never touch this again. You bring some buddies over, you can give it a 5 because you have all the multiplayer options, but besides setting high scores, there's nothing to do here, and really, you're not going to want to do that anyway. So, it gets our bare minimum 5 for having so much multiplayer. Now, when it comes to beer, I guess I'll add another 2 beers for the 2 things to do in the game, the multiplayer and the high scores.
Overall, what can I say? This truly is an awful game. And Jim and I did give it a fair shake. We even tried to make a little fun drinking game out of it and thought, hey, maybe going back and forth and getting a little competitive. It didn't help it at all. The events were goofy, the control just killed it, and the gameplay was just so bare minimum, like doing the same thing over and over, just got boring really fast. I truly can never recommend this one.
Yeah, I kind of cornholed myself because in an old episode of my thrifting series, I saw this and it was $11 and I said, $11? I don't want to pay $11 for this. I'll never touch it. And Leo messaged me going, hey, I owe you a game request. I guess you're touching the game now. Touché, sir. But that about wraps it up for this video. Or it doesn't, because I also went out there and got the Atari 2600 version.
I refused.
Brian refused. So, quick rundown. You get 4... So, Brian, this is where you can throw all the footage over my face here. So, basically, you get 4 events in this one. You get footbag, surfing, skateboarding, and BMX biking. So that's like a unique one to this one. I don't know if it's unique to any of the other versions, but it's different from the NES one here. And the BMX biking is actually like kind of weirdly decent. Like it's super very just stick figure like graphics, but
it's not like the BMX biking in the NES.
No, you're going down a mountain basically. And like going off these like giant jumps and crap like that. It's 100% different. So footbag is basically the same. I will say for footbag, it's easier to do more of the more stylish kind of tricks, and it's less easy to cheese. So weirdly enough, it's like almost better than the NES version. Surfing is basically exactly the same, and skateboarding is kind of exactly the same. So it's a weird curiosity. It's cool to see this much in music on an Atari 2600 cartridge. And it's nice and colorful, but would I recommend going out and getting it for your Atari collection? God, no. Because It's just as useless on this as it is on the NES, but I guess as far as a multiplayer game for your Atari 2600 collection goes, not a lot that handles 8 people, so yay.
So, with that, for our scores, we both gave this a 3. It is definitely below average. When we combine all of our scores together, it comes out to a 3.8. As we said, the graphics and sound, okay, they were absolutely as average as it gets. Everything else was just dog shit. So, don't be like Jim. Don't even pay $11 at the thrift store for this.
No, do not.
And once again, Leo, thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for submitting this game, you son of a bitch. Still, I think I prefer this over Donkey Kong 64.
I'll go with that.
So if anybody else, if you'd like to put in a request and you are supporting us, please click the links below. Let us know. And until next time, guys, cheers.
Cheers.
When it comes to beer pairing, I'm going to go with the Lagunitas Maximus. As soon as I hear California, Lagunitas is the first brewery I think of. And this is one of their strongest beers, coming in at 9%. In order to maximize the fun, I want you as close to blackout drunk as possible. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly.